Hello and welcome to this week's edition of We Follow the Town podcast, a weekly show looking at all things Ipswich. And today we have two fantastic guests talking through all of this week's talking points in the world of Ipswich Town. We have Stephen Parry and the Kevin Beattie Foundation's Malcolm Thompson. I'll start with you, Malcolm. How are you? And tell us a bit about the Kevin Beattie Foundation.
Yeah, hi Ben, hi Steve. Well, Kevin Beattie was a friend of mine many years ago, lucky enough, and I used to hold quite a few charity nights over at Drum and Monkey after some games once or twice a year. And Kevin was president of a supporters club that I had then, and one night he said to me, "I'd love it if my name could help people," and I misunderstood him. I thought he meant I'd love it if my name was in history books. And I said, "Kevin, you'll always be Town's number one, no matter what happens." Anyway, he thought nothing of it. And then obviously he sadly passed away, and then the statue was being built. And my mate said, "Let's do something for the statue." So we said, "What can we do that everybody else is doing?" So we said, "Well, let's do something crazy." So we decided to walk from his birthplace to Ipswich. I mean, afterwards, I wish he was born in Stowmarket. But the fact is, it was like, okay, we're doing that. But then the statue, by the time we got all the logistics and it got called off once because of logistic reasons, and then the statue was paid for, and we thought, well, we're still going to go ahead. What are we going to do with the money we're going to raise? And I just had this flashback what Kevin said, that he wanted his name to help others. So we thought, yeah, why not? Let's make his wish come true. So we decided to have a Kevin Beattie Foundation, and we got hold of the PFA, and they were very kind, and agreed to pay half the expense because it cost like £6,000 to set it up. And then I did the walk, and thanks to all the Town fans on Twitter, and I generally mean this from the bottom of my heart, they literally raised the other 3,000. So we got the £6,000, and now here we are. Can we beat your foundation? And I hope it raises many more money for many more charities, to come, and keeps Kevin's name and legacy alive. So that's where we are with it. So again, I've got to say thank you before I forget. Thank you everybody for helping us.
And it's absolutely fantastic to have you on. And now on to you, Stephen. How are you? And tell us your favourite Kevin Beattie memory, if you can.
Surprisingly enough, it's a bad one. But it was from a game which I actually watched again today, and it was the 1979-1980 game against United, where we won 6-0. Should have been 10-0. When Beattie missed the penalty. Then I think he took the penalty again, and he missed it again, and it was like, it was the epitome of him. He was like solid at the back, and he was always one of the first up there to take a penalty if needed. Obviously Walkie wasn't playing that day, so they were like mixing the penalties around, but he didn't shirk or anything like that. He was straight up there, big gentle giant as he was, and it didn't even flinch him when he missed first time, and then he had to take it again, and he saved it again, and it still didn't flinch him. It was I don't know. It epitomised the person he was, just solid as a rock.
Yeah, and as Bobby Robson said, he's probably one of the best players to ever play under Bobby Robson, and that is speaking something from a man such as Bobby. Anyway, let's get on to the initial news, because before we get on to the preview of this weekend's game, we do have some news. Town say they hope to be able to announce details for compensation for this year's season ticket holders next month. Just under 9,000 fans opted to renew their season tickets for the 2021 season, despite the pandemic. And ultimately, they are hoping, despite the pandemic still being out there, to announce the news. Now, I'll start with you, Malcolm. What do you make of this? And do you reckon they'll have problems selling their season tickets, especially with Paul Lambert in charge?
First of all, as far as refunds goes, it's a difficult. I mean, look, I'm a biggest critic of Marcus Evans. Everybody knows that. But at the moment, with his company and hospitality, I'm sure he's suffering more than anybody else. I'm sure it's a difficult situation because they haven't sorted out the previous year's season ticket refunds, asking people to put it into academy or getting shop vouchers. It's very difficult. And the announcement I made this week, if I read it right, was they wanted to see what the announcement was from Boris on the 22nd of February. Now, when I spoke to the PFA recently, because obviously they're behind the foundation, They told me there was no spectators going to any games this season. They were fighting it, like they were fighting for the salary cap, and they won that. But they were fighting to get fans back. They still are trying to get fans back in before the end of the season. Now, they're told by the government that's never going to happen this year. It may not even happen at the start of next season. So Marcus has now got to sort out basically a refund for the whole of the season. And how does he, and the biggest thing I think he's got is how does he sell tickets for next season when he probably knows, well, we probably don't know, but he's being told by the government, you may not have fans in until September, October. I mean, it's difficult for him. As much as I'm the biggest critic of him, it must be a dreadful situation to be in at the moment, as in, what do I do to please fans, to get them back? I think the only way he's going to get fans back at the moment, sadly, because I don't want to see any manager getting sacked or lose their job, or do I think he deserves to go, is he's going to have to sack Paul Lambert. But does that guarantee by the time that happens, is he going to recapture all the fans he's probably lost in the meantime? Because once you start going to the local football club down the road and have a couple of pints with your mates and having a lot of fun, is it worth? I mean, you, Ben, are the biggest people I've never known. I didn't realise you were travelling hundreds of miles to come and see a game of football for 90 minutes. I don't know anybody that travels 100 miles and watch a film for an hour and a half. So, full credit to you. So he's got to not only just attract the local fans that are around the ground, he's got to try and attract the people who come from Stowmarket, Haverhill, Bury St Edmunds. Is it worth them travelling in every day with the train costs going up as well? So there's a lot going on. So to recapture the fans for next season, it's going to be a bloody hard job, to be honest. And as much as I don't like the guy, I do feel sorry for him in some way. I really do. I don't know how Steve feels, but
yeah, your thoughts, Stephen?
I appreciate where you're coming from, Malcolm. At the end of the day, it is a tough job. Not one that, at the end of the day, he chose to do this. I think we ended up in a point where he didn't want us to be. He wanted to come in, quick fix, get us to the Premier League. Didn't quite pan out like that. And maybe that was bad advice in the beginning. Someone should have told him it might not pan out like that. But we are where we are. Do I think, like I said, I'm not a season ticket holder. I would not speak for season ticket holders. Do I think giving up your season ticket will help, like some have said? I don't really think it would. I just think, people have been saying, well, why are you buying iPod and things like that? Well, I wouldn't pay any other club to watch my football club play. I would not pay to watch my football club play. Top and bottom, I love my football club and I will pay as much as I can afford for my football club. What they do about things, it's going to be very difficult. It will depend on when fans can come back in. It will also probably depend on a variety of other things. I think the only thing you could do to start getting fans back, the manager would have to go. If he went into a season ticket campaign with Paul Lambert, you could see a 50% drop at least of season tickets. People just would not be enthused at all. So you have to bring someone in who fans can get behind. Who that is, I don't know. But, I have like I said, I think the Colas are probably the best people for us right now. I wouldn't be against going with Kieran Dyer with somebody above him. But there's got to be something that can bring fans together. I agree with Malcolm's point. Once you've lost fans, getting them back is very hard. But you've got to try and do something. And just carrying on the way we are, trying to support a man who's obviously failing, and I don't think will do what it says on the tin, is not the way to go.
So evening to all of those who have joined us. Who do you think should take over, Malcolm, as our next manager? And when will we sack Paul Lambert? Could he be gone this weekend, maybe? Should we lose against Shrewsbury?
I think Marcus has made it quite clear that he's not going to get rid of Paul until we're basically out of the playoffs. I personally think we're out of the playoffs now. But he's always... But the other thing is just compensation, isn't it? And it's not just him. Does he have to then pay off Stuart Taylor? Does he then have to pay off other people with him? I don't know. To me, I think Marcus, the situation is, especially now with hospitality being burnt and he's one of them, I think he'll go for the cheap option. And I think it'll be Kieran Dyer alongside Terry Butcher, or Kieran Dyer alongside maybe Brian Klug being promoted somehow. I don't know, but I think it's going to be Dyer. I saw Cowley's on one of the Cowleys on Football Focus the other week, and when he was asked about what job he was going for next, and he said the biggest job he would get next, the first thing he would do would look at the owners, because obviously he would need backup support. And I laughed then. I thought, well, you won't be looking at us really. So for me, again, purely because of COVID, Marcus's empire being suffered badly financially, I think it's going to be a case of he'll get Dyer in.
Yeah, I had no problems with Kieran Dyer coming in. Don't get me wrong.
No, nor do I. No, nor do I.
I just worry that with it being his first job in such a difficult situation, that he doesn't damage his brand with us. You know what I mean? Because some people can turn very quickly, even though they're ex players, like they did with Jim Magilton. There was a lot of people who didn't like Jim Magilton at the time, and at the end of the day, for me, he was a fantastic player, and was still a good manager, But I don't want him to taint his brand. I'd rather him go somewhere else and learn the trade a little bit more and then come to us. But if that's the way he goes, that's the way he goes. I support him 100%.
Yeah, but I also think that Marcus wants to get the fans back, and that'd be one of them. I think by having a local hero as manager, whether it's right or wrong, that's the way I think he'll be thinking. The players like Lancaster, Dogba, they've all played with him and been under him, whatever, at the under 18s, 21s, 23s. And they're going to be in the future as well. They're, as they call the green shoots, whatever they're called. So maybe Dyer is the one because he will know the players. And also, I think Dyer will be good because I think he'll be transparent. I think he will connect with the fans as well. I don't think he'll be. I don't think he'll do a Mick McCarthy to Paul Lambert. 1 minute, I'm with your fans all the way. The next minute, literally disrespect everything that people feel. I don't think he'll do that because he's an Ipswich boy.
Mm.
So do you reckon fans would give Kieran Dyer some leeway? Do you reckon they'd be patient with him should he become our new manager? Or would they give him the same amount of time that they've given to, say, Paul Lambert, Mick McCarthy, other managers in the past?
No, I think you'd get more. And I think the reason why is because people know what a big job it is. People know how far we've fallen. People know how low the standards are now. It just comes out, at the start of the season, it was we're going to get top two. Then it's, we're close to top two. Then we're close to, we're 4 points off the top two. Now it's like, we're a few points off the playoffs. Now it's, well, if we win, we could get in the playoffs. Well, these standards keep dropping. And I'm thinking, like, that's not great. And so I think the fans know it's a tough job, whoever takes over. And so I think he will get a hell of a lot more grace than what Paul Lambert did. But he's still going to have to perform, and I think Malcolm's right. He's going to have a lot more from these youth players who trust him more because, he's worked with them for the last year or so. So they know him well. They know how he plays. They know his style. They know what he's like. And they would trust him to bring them into the first team at the right time.
I also think very quickly that if we have to get loanees again, which I don't agree with loanees because we end up starting again 6 months down the line. But if we do have to get loanees again, I think Dyer's contacts as well would be invaluable for the club, because he will know some players, he will know some top managers out there. So I think it will be a good appointment. I just don't know how fast the fans will want it to turn around. And I agree with you, Steve. It's a bloody hard job because we have fallen so far. Now, Ipswich fans are very understanding. They really are. And they're very knowledgeable as well, believe it or not. I know there's been some awful tweets at the moment, but they're very knowledgeable fans. And they are patient. And they would like, I'm sure, a local boy to succeed as manager as well as they do to succeed on the pitch. It's a case of, though, what support is Dyer, Cowley's, whoever else is going to get from the owner. That's my only problem with whoever comes in.
Yeah, I'm sat here now, and I'm hoping if Dyer comes in, within 2 or 3 years, we end up with like George Burley. You know what I mean? We're like pushing for, getting into the championship and then pushing in the championship. That would be my ultimate dream, and I'd be dancing with Lee. I'm not looking for, it was said on TalkSport, Ipswich fans aren't really, they don't really ask for much, and we don't. No. I'd be quite happy. I don't expect us to win titles. I don't expect us to be in European. You know, when we did that under George Burley, that was momentous. You know, I'd be quite happy challenging in the Championship right now. You know, when I'm there, that might change. But, you know, right now, I'd be quite happy, you know, where we were under Mick, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, agree.
So, talking about tweets, James Norwood has been involved in a bit of a Twitter scuffle lately with fans, but Nick Chambers also posted something onto his social media. He posted this tweet right here. I don't know what you call that, a timer, I think, and like a confusing emoji at the bottom. First of all, what do you think he's implying by that? And on the subject of players being so vocal on social media, do you think there's a problem with these players being vocal on social media, and should the management maybe step in?
Okay. I will talk about the James Norwood tweet tonight because it actually made me laugh, and there's a reason why, and I have to explain this. The person that did it, Warney, and I'm happy to mention his name, Warney. Now, I know Warney a little bit, and to me, I was shocked by what he had written, if I was honest. Now, it made me laugh because about 6 years ago, I raised a fans match out in Holland, and I had Warney playing for us, and he was just like James Norwood. He won the game for us. He tore the Dutch side apart with his bullying and his running the defence. And he was just like that's why I laughed tonight, because it was just like a James Norwood, talking to another James Norwood. And I'm sure these two guys, they met, would actually have a drink together. And I'm hoping also the picture of Andre being posted in the team hotel laughing will diffuse it, because I don't think it should be as bad as it's. But also, I don't think players should get involved either. I know it's not nice, and I also believe if you tweet something, you should expect a reply back, whether it's good or bad, because if you don't want one, then don't post anything. So, you know, if James was to score a hat-trick tomorrow and everybody went, oh, well done, James, and you got a reply back going, oh, cheers for that, you'd all be going, oh, I've got a reply from James. But don't be surprised then if you get a surprise, you know, a tweet back if you posted something bad. Now, I'm not saying what Warney did was bad. I actually think what he did was slightly correct, just not the right manner. I think a lot of the fans are fed up with James climbing out of windows, doing this and doing that. It's all right when you're scoring 30 goals a season, and you might be all right doing it at Tranmere when no one knew who you was. But you're playing for Ipswich Town, and no disrespect to Tranmere, but Ipswich Town, to me, are a massive club. You wouldn't see Paul Mariner doing this. You wouldn't see Kevin Beattie doing this. All right, maybe it wasn't social media then. But I'll tell you what, you wouldn't see him doing it purely for one. I mean, Steve told us in agreement beforehand, and he's quite right. Bobby Robson wouldn't allow it. So I just want James Norwood and I want everybody else to literally stop it, get on with the game, get in the playoffs, concentrate on your game, and I want the fans, if they can, just to get behind the club. I know it's difficult because I've criticised them. Maybe COVID hasn't helped either. We're all frustrated because we're not at the game, we're not on the ground, we're not shouting, screaming, letting the anger out. And as for the, sorry, very quickly, let Steve talk, but as for the Chambers one, I'm more annoyed with the Chambers one than I am with Norwood one, because Chambers one, it's just cryptic, and he's not had the balls to say what he wants to say. If he's saying my time's up, come and say your time's up. If you're saying Lambert's talking crap and I should be playing, come and say it. Don't do an egg timer. What's that? It could be, as we said earlier, it could be he's waiting for news of the pitch. Is it? We're running out of time. Is the pitch going to be playable? Don't lead cryptic. All cryptic messages does, it gets fans talking, arguing, and that's it. Then the fan base starts split again. So they're the ones that are causing the trouble sometimes, the players, and they need to look at themselves. If not, the management needs to look at the players. Someone has to, from the top. I'll say this very quickly. Sorry, I was more annoyed many years ago when a certain striker, Michael Chopra, was going in the change rooms at half time during the game, checking his phone to see if his bets were coming in. That's worse because he's not concentrating on the game. So just stop these tweets. James, stop it, please, if you're watching this. I hope you are. All the others get off his back because he's our best striker without a shadow of doubt. We need him. And I just, it just frustrates me because I'm just as bad at Twitter, I know. But maybe it's just COVID. We just need to all chill out a bit. But it'll only chill out, as Steve said earlier, if we were top of the league. while we're 11th, we need to just concentrate getting back to where we belong, because we belong in the Championship. I actually believe we belong in the Premiership, and I'm a bit biased. But yeah, so I just, I laughed at that tweet tonight because I know Warney, and it's just like a young Norwood on the pitch talking to another Norwood. It just wasn't necessary, but it was funny in some ways. And I hope it does get diffused. That's what I'm trying to say, because we all need to get behind the team. So sorry about that. I'm just whinging on. So I'll let Steve talk now.
No, I can't add much to that. It's just like I said, the Chambers one. To me, that's nothing. That means nothing. If you've got nothing to say, all you want to put is an egg time, but then don't say anything. Because all you're going to do there is make people, they'll read into it what they want to read into it. And we're all locked up in our houses. We've all been frustrated and stressed out for the last 12, 14 months. Nothing's going right on the field. I'm pretty sure the players are as frustrated as the fans are. And I think a lot of this is down to frustration. Yeah. Can they be, but at the end of the day, they can control some of that frustration. Their actions on the pitch determine how we see them. If they were playing better, we wouldn't be talking about this. So, but all that boils back again to the management. The management should be controlling this. Nobody, going back, like I said, going back to the Robson era, no one talked to the press unless Bobby Robson said, you can talk to the press. Nobody did it at all. The manager should not be turning around and saying, look, because at this moment in time, they're in a hotel waiting to play a football game tomorrow. Take the bloody phones off them. It might sound childish, but sometimes if they're behaving like kids, you have to treat them like kids. I just think a lot of it's frustration, and it just needs to dial down. Do I think what he said was right? Well, I mean, what was said to James Norwood was right. I think it was colourful. It could have been written better. The sentiment, I think, is probably agreed by most fans. But if you give it, you've got to take it. And the top and bottom of it, that's about as far as you can go with it. But I think the first tweet that James did, I think that was disingenuous, because that came from a 2-minute conversation on TalkSport, and the only thing he took out of that was a big lump at top. Well, I took more out of that than a big lump at top. So it's as if he's only concerned about that bit. Well, I'm sorry, we're concerned about all of it. That was probably the dirtiest game I've seen in a long, long time. And that's your only take on it. I'm sorry. But to me, that was disingenuous. And that first tweet probably annoyed a lot more people.
So do you reckon the clubs should oppose sanctions to those who maybe tweets, who maybe cause, I don't know, like upset on Twitter? Do you reckon there should be like sanctions, fines maybe handed out to these players? Or do you reckon they should simply say to them, look, don't do this. You're representing our club. You need to portray yourself better on social media.
Well, doesn't everyone? At the end of the day, you can be nice to people on social media. You can be nasty. That's what social media is. It just like throws everybody nice and nasty people into a pot, and you don't know who you're going to be talking to. Just think before you do something. And I'd say that to anyone on social media. You can say something nice to someone. I had a disagreement earlier on with someone who I didn't agree with what he was saying, but I wasn't rude to him. I just said, look, I'm not going to agree with you, so I'm not talking to you anymore about this. There's no point, because I'm never going to agree with you. That can be done without having to be rude to people. If we're always rude to people, we're never going to have a conversation, because people won't want to talk to you.
I have to say also, coming back to the platform, I've separated the Sore Feet for the Beat Twitter account from the Kevin Beattie Foundation account, because what I tweet on Sore Feet for the Beat is my own personal view. I don't tweet anything on the foundation account, because that is a foundation, and that's got nothing to do with my views. So what I'm trying to say is, the club should be coming down on people like Norwood and Chambers and saying, look, you're representing Ipswich Town Football Club. What you want to do outside on your own, with a mate in a pub, 1-to-1, quietly, up to you. But I don't want it in the papers. I don't want it on social media, because you are representing our company, Ipswich Town Football Club. That's where it has to stop, which is why I'm not. Sorry, carry on, Steve.
It's the same with the goalkeeping coach. You know, he sounds like half the time he's on Twitter, he's having a few sugar-bits. You know, half of it. You know, someone needs. I think a lot of it's down to Paul Lambert not caring. I really don't think he cares.
Well, the goalkeeping coach, you know, like he had no right to post a couple of months ago. We need to change things. We need to be in the playoffs. Well, they're not in the playoffs at the moment, and that tweet simply looks ridiculous now. You know, he has egg on his face.
Yeah, but the point is, I think it's because Paul Lambert doesn't really care now. I think he knows his number's up. You know, it's just a matter of time. And he doesn't care if this club burns before he goes, so long as he gets a check. He really doesn't. And I think he's done and dusted now. And he knows that. So he doesn't really care what happens, quite frankly, because he won't be picking up the pieces.
You know what? I want to ask you guys a quick question. Sorry. I'd love to know what Paul Lambert is really thinking right now. Because when he came into the club, as a ex-Norwich, one of my fears was, this ain't going to work. That's not hindsight. I just really think. But then he started getting ex-players involved. He started getting the fans involved, like Blue Action. Suddenly the atmosphere was terrific. And I was literally thinking, and then he got into a fight at Carrow Road when the police had to step in. I generally thought this guy is literally loving Ipswich Town. Suddenly he's turned into a Mick McCarthy overnight, where he's not swearing, but he's winding the fans up. So that you don't go from A to B. I'm sorry. So does he generally still care, or is he just, like Steve said, knows that his time's up, and he's basically had enough of all the flack? I mean, you don't treat the press like that. You certainly don't ban a local journalist. I don't know, because he wasn't like that at the beginning, and that's what I'm a bit amused and a bit confused by Paul's behaviour, to be honest.
Stephen?
We'll never. Well, at this moment in time, we will never really know. It may come out after he's gone, but I don't think he's long for this club. You know, I would say by March, definitely before the early birds, he'll be going. You know, because Marcus Evans just could not run an early bird campaign with Paul Lambert here, regardless of where we are. I honestly think we could get promoted. And he couldn't get an early bird. He couldn't start an early bird campaign with Paul Lambert here. He's toxic. He's more toxic than Mick McCarthy was in his last season. You know, and that's saying something. You know, it was a stat that I picked up that if we lose tomorrow, that's the first time we'll have lost to Shrewsbury since Bobby Ferguson. You know, and I'm not being funny. We've a good chance of losing tomorrow.
Yeah, how they're going as well. You know, like, I think there was a stat I was reading earlier. Cotterill has had the best start ever that a manager has had at Shrewsbury. You know, like, they are a good team. They beat Sunderland last time out.
Yeah, I think the manager's still seriously ill in hospital, isn't he? So the players might be fighting him. So, I mean, obviously, best wishes to him. Maybe the players are showing some respect for him and trying to get all the results, obviously, for themselves and the fans, but also for him while he's fighting for his life in hospital. Well, seriously ill in hospital.
He's still managing them from his team bed, isn't he? Like, I was listening to the Kings of Anglia earlier, and apparently he's doing everything from his bed. He's doing team talks before the game from his bed, training, he's doing all of that from his bed. You know, like, the motivation the Shrewsbury players must get from that must be unbelievable, really.
That's what I'm saying. So they're probably digging out results that no one expects, like beating Sunderland, because they're fighting for him now, knowing what the situation is in. Whereas we got players putting egg timers on and having go at fans. You know, that's the difference between. Why are we like this? Because I know we shouldn't keep on about the old days, but unfortunately I have to, because Bobby Robson was a proud man. The Cobbolds were proud men. They loved Suffolk. They loved Ipswich. As I said on Twitter once, when I got a donation once from from one of my raffles, some bloke on the phone said, "What's happened to your club?" He said, "Because they were everybody's second team. Literally in the 80s, 90s, they were everybody's second team. Now, no one knows where we are, who we are. We're in League One and no one cares about us. No one knows about us." And that's, oh God, I got emotional. It really saddens me that we have fallen from, I don't care about the European winners, because I think we were punching above our weight then. But we're always in the top 5, 6 every year fighting against Liverpool for the title. And now we're playing, no disrespect, we're playing Rochdale and Shrewsbury. You know, it bloody hurts. I just wish Norwood would look at this show, because it bloody hurts James, and it hurts Marcus, and it hurts Paul, that we are fallen from the top to the to the gutter. Absolutely, we are. We've gone so low, it bloody hurts.
And I think a lot of people don't realise that. And it's a good point you made. If it wasn't for such a good Liverpool side in the 70s, we'd have won more league titles than what we actually have, because we were so dominant in the 70s and the mid to late 70s. It was only the fact that Liverpool was superb, and they were practically unbeatable, that stopped us winning at least another 2 titles.
Yeah.
So who do you blame for the sour atmosphere at the club? Because in my opinion, if you asked me that question, I'd put all the blame to the owner. The owner has barely had any communication with the fans, so ultimately the fans aren't really on his side. Plus, he's kept managers around for far too long, really. Mick McCarthy should have been sacked way before he did. And, well, the same could easily be said for Paul Lambert. So, going back to what I just said, do you reckon the owner should take some of the blame for the atmosphere?
Well, I'm always going to blame the owner, full stop. But that's also, if you're running any company and your product is falling, the sales are going down, no one's turning up to your restaurant, whatever trade you're in, as a CEO or a company owner, you have to look at your management. Your management then may have to look lower down. That's fine. So it starts from the top. And Marcus Evans must be going to Paul, why are we in such a bad state? Why is Talk Sport suddenly talking about us? Why is suddenly a national newspapers involved? It has to stop with Marcus Evans, which is why, as much as fans want Paul Lambert out, and I agree with that, of course I do, I'm surprised, and I am surprised they're not turning on Marcus, because I'm telling you, you can get Dyers in, you can get the Cowleys in, you can get Jose Mourinho in. It ain't going to happen, but you could. But I'm telling you, they're still going to be working with one hand tied behind their back. And that is it. I blame the owner for the whole demise of the football club, from where we've fallen, from the scouting, from the management, from the formations, from the fans' breakdowns, from basically for everything, because you have to. He's the owner. That's it. That's where the buck stops.
I come from this from more a half glass full sort of thing. Yeah, granted, the buck stops with the owner. He's the one who makes all the decisions. Yeah, but again, he's not there all the time. He has his mouthpiece who's doing about 50 jobs. If he's doing too much, employ somebody else who can look after the first team and who can actually make decisions when the owner's not there. When the owner's not there, nobody can sign a check, nobody can make a decision. So they have to wait till the owner turns up so they can make a decision. Sometimes that's a little bit too late. Whether that's a director of football, whether it's a director of operations, or whatever you want to call it, you're going to have to bring somebody in. If Marcus Evans isn't going to be there 24/7, which obviously we know he doesn't want to be, yeah, he wants to be this like offshore owner, fine, be that. But you're going to have someone there who can make a decision when you're not there. And we don't have that. They have it down the road in Stuart Webster. We don't have it. They say we want this, and this, go and do it. He'll do it and he'll make the decisions. That's what we need. If he wants that, that's what we need. I'm not really too fussed about the money side of it, that the fact that we're not spending loads of money, because you don't need to spend loads of money. Teams have proved you don't need to spend loads of money.
Wickham, look at them.
Well, look at Ivan Toney. He was bought for 450,000, but he went for 10 million. It can be done. I know you've got to look. Sometimes you'll find a bad one. Sometimes you'll find a good one. Jamie Vardy cost $1 million. These players are there. You've just got to look for them. You've just got to be prepared to look for them. And we've got managers who would rather look upwards than downwards. And the best league in this country never looks upwards for its players. It always looks downwards, and that's the Premier League, because there's nowhere else to look. So start looking downwards, where there's some damn good players down there, who would probably be better than some of the players we've got. And I think sometimes people are a bit too hung up on how much we spend. We never have spent loads of money. And look at Derby, for instance. They used to spend way more than us. They're really in some serious muck right now. You know, who would you rather be right now? Also Derby, because they could be out of business soon if they don't find a buyer quickly. You know, so, you know, I think, would anybody buy the club? I don't think they would. Not if Marcus Evans wants his money back. He's not getting any money back. You know, if anybody offered him 50 million, if I were him, I'd take it, because he's not going to get it back. Not while we're in League One, and not while we're in the Championship. You know, 100 million, that's a Premier League club price. You're never going to get that back while you win League One or the Championship. So what does he do? Cut his losses and get what he can get? Or does he carry on doing what he's doing? But he can do what he's doing and make us successful without spending a lot of money. He just needs a better person to come in and wheel and deal, should I say.
So do you reckon this could be solved by hiring a director of football? Somebody who knows about football, somebody who maybe has contacts, who's maybe knowledgeable about the game, like Leo Neal, sorry. So do you reckon like a director of football would maybe help solve these issues that we currently have?
Well, one person we do need is someone better than Leo Neal, because all I've seen him is he's come out the last day or so, but he was hiding the last 6 months. All right, admittedly he was ill. I'm not showing anybody. But when you hear stories, I mean, it is stories, I know it's true, where he changed his email address because he was getting too much. I mean, come on. If he can't do the job, then get out. I mean, I don't need to be horrible, but we need someone who could, maybe Steve's right, I didn't look at it that way. Maybe we do need someone who can do more of a role to help Paul. But does Paul want someone like that? Does Paul want to be the number one poncho that runs the club, does this, does that? And is he the one that's putting the strings with Leo Neal? I don't know. That's the thing. Again, because of the owner, this is why I'm going to the owner again, because he's not transparent enough. I don't know what his plans are. We don't know what he's thinking. We don't know why he won't sell the club. Has there been people coming in asking to buy the club? I mean, I disagree with Steve on that aspect. I think Ipswich Town is a fantastic attraction, as long as the money's right, yes. You know, if someone's going to go to Wrexham, bloody hell, they must want to come to us. Whether it's just for the history of Robson and the fantastic ground. But then Marcus Evans is he? Because it's not just a debt. You know, Marcus Evans has brought the training ground. So if he ripped the debt off, you still got to buy the training ground, and he'll get that money back that way. So yes, it's going to be hard for someone to buy the club, but I don't believe the name of Ipswich Town, if branded properly, cannot be a great buy for someone.
Sorry, Malcolm. I'm not saying no one would buy it. It is an attractive proposition. As Sky said, it's a sleeping giant, you know, and there's a lot of potential. But what I'm saying is if Marcus Evans is holding out for 100 million, he's not going to get it. Nobody's that mad. Nobody will buy a mid-table League One club for 100 million. It just is. It's beyond. That's money you pay for a Premier League club. And
yeah, but hasn't he always said right from the start, though, Steve? It's in black and white. He can't get out of this. He's always said from the start that the debt's his, and when he walks away, he would walk away with the debt. Which is why I'm saying it's right in saying that. He's very clever. That's why he's bought the training ground. So the club has no debt in what he was saying. It's just that you buy the club, you've also got to buy the training ground. Now, you might stick £150 million on the training ground. I give you that. But that's what I'm saying. He needs to come out and tell us, has there been any bids? Has anyone? Because I heard, and I don't know if this is true, but the East Anglia Times were told of someone who went to Marcus Evans to buy the club with a good proposition, and he declined. Now, I don't know what the proposition was, but there was someone that went to the club and offered to buy the club. Now, he declined. Now, I don't believe, and all I see is people say, and this isn't you, Steve, I'm talking about Twitter as a whole. People saying no one to be man enough to buy Ipswich. No, yes, they are, because Ipswich is a fantastic club. The fact is, if Marcus Evans wanted to sell, like you would see, if you wanted to sell something, you would go on eBay. You would find someone to buy your product. I don't care what it is, how much it's worth. If you're that desperate or you really wanted to sell something, you would sell it. You might have to cut your loss. You would sell it. And that's what I'm saying. I don't believe for 1 minute he wants to sell. I think he's very comfortable. The fans are very comfortable to him. That's what I said right from the start of the podcast. You can never go at Paul Lambert. I'm gobsmacked that no one is literally firing bullets at him. Not literally, because, you know, I think he is the biggest problem why we have gone down in the last 10 years. And I can tell you what, unless he leaves, I will predict that we'll end up in League Two. I hate to say that.
Well, that's where I have a difference of opinion, because at the end of the day, you can have poor owners, yeah, but if the right man's in place as a manager, you can have success. You know, you've seen that on several occasions. United had poor owners; they didn't fall apart. You know, Liverpool had poor owners who, for them, weren't spending a lot of money. Yeah, they didn't fall apart because they had a good manager in place who knew what he was doing. Yeah, I honestly think, you know, if you've got the right man who can work on the budget he's got, which is next to nothing, I agree with that. Getting in Premier League youth players who are out of contract, maybe some some cheap players from the lower leagues, and building a team with youth players, and you can get success that way. And try and get Marcus Evans enthused in. I think he's more apathetic than anything right now. Try and get him enthused back into the club again, to where he was when he first come. And if you start seeing success, he might start opening his wallet a bit more.
So could Paul Lambert redeem himself? Remember when he first came to the club and fans were like waving, you know, like money up in the air? Do you reckon he could redeem himself, or do you reckon it's too late? Because in my opinion, he lost himself when he didn't sack Mick McCarthy at the time. And I reckon fans kind of thought that Marcus didn't really care about the club. In my opinion, he's never really cared that much about the club. He's never cared about the community. So, yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
No. Paul Lambert's done with me. I couldn't. I support Ipswich Town. I don't support the manager. I don't listen to his press conferences. I don't read anything that he says. I don't listen to his post-match press conferences. I don't care. He could win us this league. I want him gone. I think he's disrespectful. I think he's a horrible little man, you know. And the sooner he buggers off back to Scotland, the better, as far as I'm concerned. You know, he's been an absolute. He's like an earthquake. He's a natural disaster. There's nothing that he's done, barring them first few weeks when he brought people together, which I think that was a pre-planned thing by him. And there's been nothing since then, and it's been disaster all the way. So for me, no matter what he does now, I couldn't support him anymore.
So how much blame does the owner have to get for this though? Because under any other ownership, he would have been sacked. You know, like, let's not kid ourselves. If he was at maybe, let's say, a different club like Peterborough, he would have been sacked. So, in my opinion, Marcus Evans gets just as much of the blame as Paul Lambert does. So, yeah, going back to what I just said, do you reckon Marcus Evans should really get the blame for Paul Lambert and the position that we're in? Because, you know, like, both of them have done as much damage to the club as one another, really.
I was. Look, I want one person out of this club, full stop, and that is Marcus Evans. End of. But and the reason is, lots of reasons. He should have controlled. His appointments have been atrocious. You know, to sack someone who's next to his mother on a dying deathbed by phone is despicable. I'll never forgive Marcus Evans for that. To then tell Jim Hilton to come and collect your stuff, and you find your stuff's out in the bloody road somewhere, disgusting. To get someone in Roy Keane in, who the only reason why you wanted Roy Keane in was so he can then have Marcus Evans splattered all over Sky. That was just a massive PR stunt. And look who we got in: Jimmy Bullard, Bowyers, all the past has-beens who he thought he can do, like Steve said earlier, a quick fix, get into the Premiership, and that totally failed. Ever since then, his appointments have been absolutely atrocious. So I can't trust him to get the next one right either. So, which is what I'm saying. I believe the one person the fans should be united in getting out, because the club won't change. The club won't get any better while you have the owner sitting there, doesn't care. And he certainly doesn't care. Because I tell you what, the way he allowed Paul Lambert also to treat Phil Ham was the final straw for me for both Not just Marcus Evans, but also Paul Lambert for me. I thought that was absolutely disgusting.
No, I agree with you. Sorry.
I just want to read a comment, sorry to interrupt, that Jack Messenger has put up here. At first, Ipswich was a nice looking thing for Evans to have in his portfolio. Now it just looks like a problem for him. I mean, your thoughts on his comment and yeah.
I agree with it, but is it a problem for him? Or is it something that he uses to his advantage? You know,
make profit from.
Well, he doesn't make profit from it, but does it cost him any money? That's the point. You know, his debts get funneled straight into his shell companies. You know, is he writing his debt? Is he writing his tax off with that? You know, we don't know. He's about as transparent as a brick wall. We don't know. This debt that he has, it might not cost him a bean. That might come from the HM Customs, for all we know. HM Customs might be paying our bills. And he's just shoving it off into an offshore company which goes through his other companies. A decent accountant can make any debt disappear. You know, if you've got more than one business. I think this year is going to be a problem because he's not making any money. But normally, I think that's why he's not bothered. He's not bothered about the community. He's not bothered about the area. He's not bothered about, but we serve a purpose. And if that's the case, get out. I don't want you to serve a purpose. I want you to serve, do what it says on the tin. Britain, we want success. We don't care if it costs us a few million.
You know what, Steve? You're totally right there, Steve. Sorry, it's much right. I have to say this. You're totally right by one thing you said there, massively. No one ever says that either, is the community. If Ipswich Town was back in the Championship, forget about the Premiership, the Championship, and we were getting 20,000 in every week, the whole of that town would benefit. You know, the pubs would thrive. The hotels would get booked up. Shops would get, people going in buying lunches and stuff. Everybody would be thriving. It's the whole community. Whether he's supported Ipswich Town or not, the whole of that town would thrive. So he doesn't care. He's happy to sit in League One. As far as I can say, I don't care if I get in trouble. He's sitting there using Ipswich Town as a tax haven. And that's it. He doesn't care about the community. He doesn't care about us three. He doesn't care about the rest of the other 18,000 that turn up every week. He said, I won't buy it. And to me, he has to go. And I keep repeating myself, I'm so surprised the fans are not lynching for him, because any other club that leads a Millwall, they would have ran him out by now.
I'm actually, quite happy that, to turn around and say that, I'd be happy if Marcus Evans went. I'd be concerned to come in, because you can, like I said, you can jump Marcus Evans out and end up with someone like they've got at Newcastle, who's just as bad. He spends money, but he's just as bad. But, I think Marcus Evans is a problem. I think he should go. But where are we going to get someone from? That's the point. I don't want to go down a route where we end up like something like Wigan or something like that, where we end up with nothing. It's like at the moment anything's better than the worst case scenario. If we had a bit more transparency, we might understand a little bit more. We just need communication and not these 6-month pre-written scripted letters that he seems to come out with. Do an interview with someone, for God, even if it's on Zoom so they can't punch you. Do something. Communicate with us. He just looks like a robot. We don't know. We didn't see him for like a year and a half when he bought the club. Nobody knew who he was.
Has he ever met the fans, by the way? Sorry to interrupt, but has he ever like when Marcus Evans, when Paul Lambert, first came in, he met all the fans. He did something at the fan zone. I think it was like an interview maybe that he did with the fans. But has Marcus Evans ever done anything like that, where he said hello to the fans, where he's shown his face at Portman Road, shook hands with a whole lot of people? I don't think he has.
Shook hands with the chavs. Get out. They'd be worried of catching someone. Get out. We're beneath him. We're customers. That's all we are. We're not fans. We're not loyal supporters to him. We're customers. Yeah. And as long as we pay, he's happy. It will come a point we will have no fan base. The fan base will have gone, because a lot of people are losing faith. A lot of people don't care. I still care. I still want everybody else to care. But we'll have generations and generations coming after us who will just say, Why? Why bother? You know, and this needs to get to him. You are destroying us from within. And either ship up or ship out. Simple as. Because we can't carry on like this. Or, as Malcolm said, we will be League Two. Unless something very quickly happens.
Sorry, Ben, I don't know how old you are. I don't mean to be rude, but I'm sure Steve would definitely know. David Sheepshanks, love him or like him, David Sheepshanks, he used to come, he'll talk to you. He seriously would come up and talk to you. Now,
yeah, but he used to get some grief as well.
Yes, he did, but he still came out and spoke to you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But he could take it. And he understood that if people weren't giving him grief, there was a reason why people were giving him grief. And he listened to them. You know, and sometimes he help.
My favourite, my story with David Sheepshanks was I actually asked him once for a meeting, and fair play, he shocked me by saying yes. And I actually said to him, "Why did you sack George Burley?" And you know what? He turned around and he pointed to the picture of the FA Cup winning side on the wall. And when he turned back, he had like tears. He wasn't crying, but he had tears in his eyes. And he said, "You thought that was bad. I was the one that had to sack him. And I loved that team. How hard do you think it was for me?" And I felt really bad. So he really did care. He really, really cared about the club. He took flack. He had to make some hard decisions, but he still came out and fronted it. Marcus Evans, the only time I've ever known him is if I ever got a legal letter or something. It's ridiculous. The guy needs to go.
Which makes me wonder why the structure's wrong at the moment. Yeah, at the moment, it's Marcus Evans, Lee O'Neill, Paul Lambert. The only person out of that lot who knows anything about football is Paul Lambert. Yeah, so we need someone. Get rid of Lee O'Neill or get him looking after the under-9s or whatever he wants him to do. Put someone in there who understands the game as the go-between between Marcus Evans and Paul Lambert. And then who can also make decisions. Yeah, and I think then Marcus Evans can go and swan off and do what he wants. You've got someone in place who understands the club, who knows the club, you know, whether it be a Joe Rowe, whether it be whoever, you know, it could be, you know, a George Burley, whatever, a Terry Butcher, whatever. Someone in there who knows the club, knows the community, knows what's needed, and won't take the bullshit that Paul Lambert keeps filling Marcus Evans' ear with. Oh, we were best side. No, we weren't. Well, that's what he tells him every game, and he knows no better. He listens to it because that's his man. You know, if you told anybody else, if there was somebody in there and he was saying, well, you don't get to speak to him, you talk to me first. You know, he said, well, we were bad. No, we were shit. You know, that's the top, but that's what we need. And that's what Marcus Evans will need. And I think it will work better for Marcus Evans if he had that filter between management and him. And he hasn't got that right now.
I mean, like, the saddest thing is, and I had Luke Hume on the podcast the other day, we're both around about the same age. All we have known is Marcus Evans. All we have known is basically unsuccess, if that's even the word. You know, like, we haven't lived to see the success. We weren't alive when Burley got us into Europe, you know, when we finished 5th on the table. We weren't alive when Bobby Robson was around. And basically, there are a whole load of generations of fans who won't want to grow up supporting Ipswich. You know, like the 5-year-old living in Ipswich, he won't want to grow up supporting Ipswich. He want to support Man City, one of the big Premier League teams. And I reckon that's quite damaging, really, because that is what the owner has done to the club. The owner's basically put a huge gap between the fan base, if that makes any sense at all.
But I think it can come back. And the key to it is getting the structure right. If Marcus Evans wants to be this like supreme leader that controls everything, then he's got to be here. He's got to be here to, you know, take the flak for it as well. Yeah. You know, if he doesn't, if he wants to be this recluse guy who appears every now and again, then you're going to need someone there on a daily basis, or at least 3 times a week or whatever, who can make decisions. Yeah. Not just leave it to your manager to do everything. Otherwise, all you're going to get is the manager doing what he wants. And we can see what happens when a manager wants to do what he wants. We end up mid-table in League One. So you've got to have some sort of balance. And we haven't got that at the moment. And a director of football for me is probably the most important thing we need right now, as well as Lambert going.
So, okay, we're out of the pandemic. Fans are allowed back in at Portman Road. Apart from sacking Paul Lambert, what could Marcus Evans do to encourage the fans to actually attend the game at Portman Road? Because, to be honest, I live 8 hours away, And I don't think I'll be travelling up as soon as Portman Road opens again. I don't think I'll have the encouragement or the motivation to even do that this time.
I don't think, as much as I criticise Marcus Eversnight, I don't think he's the one that's going to be able to bring the fans back. As it's quite rightly, as Steve said, it's the manager and the players performing and winning every week. You want to see attractive football, you want to see the team winning. But obviously, Marcus has to get the right appointment in. But once the COVID's over, you need someone who's going to get that team out there. Look, as Steve said, and quite rightly so, Talk Sport were literally Adrian Durrell, whatever people think of him, he was spot on. Ipswich fans don't cry for league championships and UEFA Cup winners. All right, we had it, but we don't demand it. We turn up and we want someone to wear the shirt every week, put a performance in. And at the moment, all I've seen is tip-tap across the back and suddenly you hoof it. You know, there's no... And then when that goes wrong, there's no plan B. So if that was now, I can guarantee the fans would be booing half-time every game by now. And I think Lambert would have been gone. I think COVID saved him, to be honest. So the only thing that's going to save, get people back is whether Paul Lambert's still there. He's going to have to do more than just a pint in here, a fan zone. But I think you're going to need a new manager, and you're going to need not attractive football. We're just going to need something we got better at the moment, to be honest.
What I think might work, and I think Malcolm brought it up earlier, if you went down, as Malcolm would say, the cheap option, you know, the Kieran Dyer with the Terry Butcher, that will bring the community together because they understand the community, yeah. And also, you know, they might bring some of the younger players through, yeah. They may not be ready yet, but in a year or two's time, if you played them, they would be, yeah. We might have some, you know, dicey moments while they're getting there, but fans can accept dicey moments from an 18, 19-year-old. Because you expect that dicey moments from an 18, 19-year-old. But like when they played Matson the other day against Blackpool, they were also going, we've got it. That 18-year-old was doing wonderful stuff on the right wing. And then as soon as Chambers come back, it was, you know, come on. You know, sometimes an 18-year-old belting up and down the wing or running off doing something else. You know, like when Elkin Baggott made his debut in the Cup, you know, everyone was wanting to see that. And they were delighted to see it. And I think bringing in someone like that would probably bring in some of those players quicker. And I think that might help as well.
So let's talk about this week's game, because we were going to go into it in quite a bit of detail, but I don't think there's any point, to be honest. It wasn't an exciting game. It wasn't a game where we can really get anything out of. Basically, Peterborough won 2-1. Norwood scored earlier on. He was taken off at half-time. I don't know whether we can read anything into that. But okay, let's talk about the two fullbacks a minute, because you just mentioned that right then. Luke Chambers played last time alongside Stephen Ward, both fullbacks, and they both replaced Ken Lock and Matheson. He played rather well in the previous game, in my opinion. Luke Chambers, Stephen Ward, neither of them have any legs in them. What did you make of the two of them starting? And does Luke Chambers have much time left?
No. In my opinion, the average combined age of 70, you know, like I've said before, even me now at 50, I think I can do things that I used to do at 18. I'm sorry, I can't. Yeah, he thinks he can do things he used to be able to do at 18. He's 35. No, you can't. You can say you can, you can't. Yeah. So the top and bottom of it is time waits for no man. Yeah. We all don't want to get old. We have to get old. That's part of it. Yeah. And there's certain things you can do. There's certain things you can't do. Yeah. And playing 30 odd games, you know, his performance has been getting worse and worse and worse as the years have gone on. Yeah. Comes a time when you just have to say, look, you were a great player for us. You did well. You did well for us. Yeah. And you were a loyal servant. Yeah. But it's time to hang your hat up and let the young guns have a go. Otherwise, how are they going to get a go? If players played till they're 50, youth players would never get a game. You know, come on. It comes a time when I think 35 is a bit too much, and I think it's time that, you know, he hung his hat up gracefully. But we offered him, I don't know, some sort of youth role or something.
He's been captain at this club for 7 years, Malcolm. How much of an important servant has he been for the club? Okay, let's not talk about his, recent performances because they haven't been good. But he's been a good servant, hasn't he? He's been a decent captain.
I've slated Chambers for the last 2 months because of his performances. But as Steve said, that's not him personally. It's because his body's getting old. His mind might think he's still 18, but he's not. Okay, that's nothing against him. That's just life. But I want to talk about Luke Chambers for one reason. He has been a great servant. He does lots of stuff off the pitch that people don't see. He's done lots of charity work. He's put youth kids up and lodges and stuff. And one thing I will say about Luke Chambers that reminds me of Kevin Beattie is you don't see Luke Chambers missing a game. You never seen him out injured. He will always play. So he has a passion for that club. And I agree with Steve. Hang your boots up, Luke, because I don't want your last 9 years tarnished because of the last 2 months. Hang your boots up. Get a role within the club. Become the club ambassador. If it just means going around hospitals and schools or whatever. I don't care what your job is. Stay with the club because you have been a great ambassador. Have a testimony.
Yeah. I've just thought of it now. There may be a job vacancy for it. Yeah. At the end of the day, Kieran Dyer gets first team manager, academy manager's open. It'd be a perfect job for Luke Chambers with Cole Skuse as deputy. So you
I think he'd be a great athlete. Yeah, I think he, can imagine him and Dyer to change. I can imagine him, I can imagine Chambers being another Terry Butcher in the changes, really smashing the head against the wall, going, come on, lads, this is Ipswich, wear the badge with pride, get out there. Dyer might have the knowledge of 4-4-3 or whatever, but Chambers have been a man that I never missed a game. I never shirked out of a tackle. So I don't want his last 9 years ruined or tarnished because of the last 3 or 4 months. So as much as I think he should go, and I think he should hang his boots up. But I still would like him to maintain some sort of role within the club because I think he's been that good a good servant. I really do.
He's got something to offer, and I think we shouldn't let it go. If he wants a 1 year contract as a player, then we offer him a 1 year contract. No, the salary cap's not there. We offer him a 1 year contract as a player on provision that it's a player coach, or whatever, just so we can tie him down as that coach role. Because I do think he's got something to offer.
Yeah, so do I. So, if not, he can come and work for the Kevin Beattie Foundation if he's watching.
So just briefly, who do you reckon the next Ipswich captain should be? Because Flynn Downs was against Blackpool. He was the Ipswich captain, and I thought he played rather well with the armband. Do you reckon he could be maybe a shout as a future captain?
I think he stood up well. I think it was one of his best games as captain. Maybe he thought I have to lead by example because I'm captain today, and I thought that was one of his best games. I thought it was better than the Peterborough game. I think he was a bit reckless in the Peterborough game, but so were most of them. But he stood up and he was counted, and I think that's because he felt the responsibility as captain. And no, I wouldn't mind him being captain now, to be honest, if that's what it does to him.
Have we got any leaders though in our squad? Sorry to interrupt, but we haven't really got any leaders in our squad. So surely he's the only logical option, I guess, Malcolm.
No, I agree with Steve, 100%. I think Downs is the next future captain. I think we should be building a team around him. As for leadership, this is another thing where I think the club has fallen. Luke Chambers used to be screaming from the top of his voice. Now there's no crowd. You can hear people scream. I can't even hear Luke once nowadays. It's ridiculous. So he's gone quiet. I don't know why. Maybe he's fed up. Maybe he's disillusioned. I don't know. I've seen his post interviews and I've seen Wolfie's post interviews, and both times I've done it, they've both been dropped the following week. So I don't know. There is no leaders. No, that's the trouble. And that's not because no one cares. I just don't think they're in that mould. Whereas I'm saying, this is why some people need to take a calm look at Luke, because he was a great leader. And I say he was because I'm hoping it's the ending. He was a great leader. And, he was a great captain. And I'd like him to stay. Of course I would, as I say. I'd love it. But I don't know what Steve thinks. I don't know. I don't think there is any other leaders at the moment. You can say right now, we've got another Luke Chambers, you know, as in the passion on that pitch right now, apart from Downs. I really don't.
I look at leadership in a different role to what people always usually say leadership is people who go around shouting and screaming. That's not always leadership. Yeah, that can be also classed as bullying as well. Yeah, I take leadership as someone who has a job, does the job, and they do their job right. Yeah, and they lead by everybody. You know, they lead by example. You know, and they expect everybody else to lead by their example. So if they're doing this job, you can quietly go say, look, I'm doing my job this way. I expect you to do your job the same way I'm doing mine. That's leadership. And you don't need to be mouthy or shout at people to do that. You can just, and that's what I think Downs did. He led by example. And other players looked at him, saw him do that, thought, well, what if I do that, but in my role? And I think others stepped up because of it. Leadership can be underestimated. A lot of people just think it's a matter of shouting and making sure people do what they're told. You know, that can undermine some people. People can go into the shell when they get shouted at, and then they start making mistakes. I think a lot of the time it's better to encourage people and make them lead by example.
So let's talk about the press conference briefly, because again, there wasn't much to talk about in the game, to be fair. But Taylor did the press conference again. Paul Lambert went and hid. He'd happily do an interview for Celtic TV, but he doesn't do interviews for our local press, of course. Anyway, Taylor did the press conference, as I just said. And in the press conference, he said, it's not a big deal not beating teams at the top of the league, as long as you get enough points to get where you need to be, which is true. But when you finished 11th last year and you're 11th this year, then it obviously does matter. In my opinion, this is just my opinion, I thoroughly disagree with what he just said. But give me your thoughts on Taylor, what he said during his press conference, and even Paul Lambert not turning up. Like, should he turn up to these press conferences?
Well, I'm going to say this. I'm not even going to discuss Paul Lambert not turning up because he has no respect for us. So I've got no respect to discuss that bit. As for Stuart Taylor, I think he was just reading the same script that Paul Lambert says. And that was it, really. That's the same old thing comes out every week. I know Steve said earlier he doesn't listen to it anymore. I don't blame him because it's the same spill. You know, we were the better team. We had control. The referee this, the referee that, the pitch this. Oh, it just turns your ears to blood. It's just boring, absolutely boring. And as for Lambert, as I say, not turning up, disgusting, disrespectful.
Yeah, for me, Paul Lambert, well, I think he writes his speeches on Friday, the day before. I think he knows what he's going to say before we even play, no matter what the result is. You know, in regards to what was said after the match, I'll paraphrase Darren McAntony. Everybody knows who won that game. We didn't deserve to get nothing. You know, the result was generous on us, if you ask me. So
I'll tell you what I like to discuss. Sorry, Steve. It's not the post-match comments. Sorry, Ben, I actual show. It's not the post-match comments. It's the pre-match comments to get my back up. Because no matter who we play, you'll praise that team up. Oh, yeah, we're playing Shrewsbury today. They're probably bottom of the league. Yeah, well, they shouldn't be there in the fourth position. And if that's his team talk, I bet the players turn up and think, oh, we've got an easy game today. Suddenly their heads are turned. Oh, my God, we're playing world beaters. You know, stop praising the other team. Start looking over your own team. Start putting players in the right positions and start, you know, geeing your team up. This is what I'm saying about Chambers. Start geeing your team up and tell them to get out there and get that first goal. And when you get the first goal, don't stop. Get out, get the second goal. Don't stop. Now go and kill the game off, get the third goal. Don't worry about who they are. Let them worry about who we are. It's ridiculous. Sorry.
I was going to say I watched that piece that was on YouTube about before the Blackpool game, I think it was. That's on YouTube, and everything was going fine. And obviously, it didn't show what was said in the dressing room, and what he said in the dressing room might have been totally different. But all you got from Lambert in the tunnel was people the ball. That was it. You know, you're in the tunnel. You're about to start. Get them going. You know, keep hold of the ball. That was it. I'm thinking, well, is that it? Keep hold of the ball. What they do, that's really fired them up, hasn't it? Shove a rocket up their arse saying, I want to win today. Get out there and win. Do something. Make it look like you actually care about what it is you want to do. Granted, we won. But, on another day, we might not have done, and it would have looked a bit of a lemon, but I don't think they'd have made the film if we'd have lost. So, we'll see. Because he never turns up when we lose. So when we lose, he doesn't do press conferences. He suddenly started saying like, "Oh, I'm busy, so I can't do it." So it's interesting.
So let's talk about our next game. We are playing Shrewsbury, as you just said, and here is the league table. We are 11th in the league, and Shrewsbury are 17th. They don't judge the table because Shrewsbury are actually in really good form under Steve Cotterill. And as I said at the beginning of the show, Steve Cotterill has had the best start as a Shrewsbury manager than any other manager that has been at Shrewsbury. First of all, are you optimistic heading into this game? I'll talk about the team news in a minute, but yeah, are you optimistic, Malcolm? And then I'll come to you, Steve.
As we both discussed earlier, or sorry, all three of us discussed earlier, you read reports of the Shrewsbury manager in a hospital bed, but still worried and still trying to get a result from the following game, whoever he's playing against. We've got our manager who just doesn't basically seem to give a toss. So when you get that scenario, I can guarantee you who's going to be the winner. It ain't going to be us.
And the thing is, I did a bit of digging about it. I went back through Shrewsbury's last 12 games, and they've got 24 points out of 12 games. So they're averaging 2 points a game from the last 12 games. And some of those are draws against Accrington, Charlton, beating Hull, beating Lincoln, beating Doncaster, beating Portsmouth, beating Sunderland. Teams we can't beat. And I'm thinking to myself, like, our points per game is 1.16. We've had 14 points out of 12 games. Their form table, they're fifth, we're 16th. And people are saying, what? We can win. On what metric? That we what? Because we're Ipswich, that we'll win. On all the statistics, all the form stats, all the recent stats on teams we've played, teams they've played. We played Hull, we lost. We played Charlton, we lost. We played Lincoln, we lost. Did we play Donny? I think we did. No, we haven't played.
I think we played them yet.
We played Posh, we lost. We played Sunderland, we lost. They beat all them. So on what metric are we going to win? I just can't see it. And the Ipswich Town fan in me says we should get a draw, but that's just being me being charitable. I can't see where we get a draw. I really can't.
So let's talk about the team news a minute, because we do actually have some positive news for once. James Wilson and Toto Nsiala aren't too far away from returning from their injury, and they could return, sorry about the light, in time for the next game. Now, what do you make of the news? And ignore the lights. My spotlight's just gone, so apologies about that to those who are watching on YouTube. So yeah, what do you think about the team news? James Wilson, Toto Nsiala, are they positive additions to the squad once back fit?
The positive additions, I think I've always said, playing the likes of Wilson and Chambers, playing the likes of Wolford and McGuinness, they're similar sorts of players. You need like a stopper and a ball player. Yeah. So when the ball player goes, that stopper moves in and stays there. You can get confused a bit sometimes. Against the better sides, you can get confused a bit when you've got two similar sorts of players in there. And same with having two stoppers in there. It works, but it doesn't give you much going forward. So I prefer one of each if you can help it. For me, at the moment, I'd probably say it's a toss-up between James Wilson and Nsiala. Nsiala offers you something. James Wilson offers you something. They've both got downsides. So it's like flip a coin, really. Are they ready? No, not slightest. They can't be out for that long and then say, "Oh, we're fit now." You're not. You've not done any prep. You've not done any under-23 work. You're not fit, you know. And it makes a mockery of Paul Lambert, you know, because he had Kenlock and he had Matheson against Blackpool. Then he brings in Chambers and Ward because an 18-year-old and a 23-year-old can't play 2 games in 4 days. Yeah, but yeah, we're going to start tomorrow with McGuinness and Wolfenden probably, and they'll start 3 games in a week. You know, where's the logic? They can do 3 games in a week, but Matheson and Kenlock can't do 3 games in a week. You know, it's incredulous. It really does. It just makes me think, well, you know, even Judge can do 3 games in a week if he starts tomorrow. You know, and he's 31. So it's just nonsense. Yeah, we all know these players. If they're fit enough, they can play and they want to play. It's the managers trying to find excuses just in case things don't go well. So he's saying, well, I'll tinker with this, I'll tinker with that. And half the time, if you tinker with things, you break it. So you better just leave it alone. And you probably get more success.
What's Malcolm?
Oh, I just find it sad that we're in January and Paul Lambert doesn't even know what his first team is now. So,
Exactly.
but also, and the other thing is, he just contradicts himself because only a few weeks ago he said, you know, if you're on a winning side, why need to change it? Well, then that the case, why did you bring back Chambers and you know, drop Matheson? You know, the young lads, for Christ's sake, don't want to play. Why bring them on loan if we're not going to use them as well? That's the other thing. You know, it's crazy. I just hope tomorrow he somehow utilises Lancaster, because this one guy, I think, you know, he's had 4 assists, I think, or something, 2 goals. It's not a lot, but he ain't played many games either. And I think this is a guy who can have a run of games, could be quite valuable for the side, you know. And I don't see what Thomas, I don't want to disrespect anyone, but I don't see what Thomas has done to tell me that bringing him on loan is better than pushing him ahead of Lancaster. I really don't. And as I said it right from the beginning of the show, I don't like the loanies anyway, because in 6 months' time you're back to square one, and then you've got to start all over again. That's what we keep doing, is starting over again, and it's getting tiresome. Now it's boring. So yeah, anyway, going back to the Shrewsbury team, I'd like to see basically Matt and Kenlock. I'd like to see Harrop, that's how you say his name, start instead of Judge. Just nothing against Judge. I'd just like to see Harrop start. I'd just like to see us basically right from the first whistle attack and have a go at Shrewsbury. Stop this tip-tappy, because Shrewsbury are on form. And if you want to let them come at you, they'll come at you. And we'll end up. And one thing I don't like about Ipswich lately is Paul Lambert seems to act after we've gone 1 down. Doesn't seem to want to do it right from the start. You know, just go out there and take the game. We did at Peterborough. We scored after 6 minutes. So then for some reason we went back to usual. Just get in there, get the first goal. Then, as Bob Robson say, get the second goal, and then go and get another goal and kill them off. Win the game. Don't let them in. You know, we don't. We just, you know, he's going to play Chambers or Judge. You just know it's going to happen. So who knows?
I think the team will be very interesting tomorrow. I think Twitter might have.
Who would you start though? Like, who would you start next game?
For me, it'd have to be Matheson and Kenlock.
Yep.
Centre backs would probably have to be as the other day, Wolfenden and McGuinness.
Yep.
I would carry on with Hawley in goal, because even though he made a mistake, for my mind, I think he rectified with a couple of 2 or 3 good saves afterwards. I'd like to see Lancaster get a run on right wing, because he's going to be here next year and Thomas isn't. I really didn't really see the point in that signing anyway. Probably Edwards on the left wing, Downs defensive midfielder, and then an inverted triangle with, like we did at Blackpool, with probably Harrop, because I think Judge could do with the rest, and Dazelle with Parrott in front of him.
Yes, spot on, and I thoroughly agree with you there. Carry on.
Who would you play as your striker?
Have Parrott in front of.
Parrott. Yeah, sorry, Parry. Yeah. I personally would.
It seemed to work well at that point. So
Yeah. I got a feeling it's going to be Norwood, and quite right. He was fit, but what worried me today is like Lambert coming out today and saying he's only got 45 minutes in him. Well, again, if that's the case, then you have to start with him, get on the front foot, go 1-0 up, 2-0 up, and then if you have to take him off. Don't bring him on after we're 2-0 down because that's no good either. So
that's it. Yeah. We know, he played this formation at Tranmere, so he knows this formation at the back of his hand. This was the formation he played, or a version of it, a 4-3-3. So that role doesn't shock him in any way. And I think he could do a job there. But are the players around him the right players? Because like I said, he had different players at Tranmere, or maybe they're just told to do different jobs. And something's not clicking. Yeah. And I think Paul Lambert was under the impression that if he played this formation that Norwood knew well, got some players around him, it would click. And he's just thought, well, let's change the players, see if that works. Well, sometimes it's not the players. Sometimes it's what you're telling the players to do. If people aren't coming in to support the striker, it isn't going to work. If people are just running down the wings, like putting balls in, and he's only like 5'8" or whatever, it's not going to work. So it's more about what you do with the players rather than who you have. But I think there does need to be a bit of a change. Just a little tinker, nothing drastic. I'd bring in Lancaster and Harrop, and that's probably about it.
Yeah, I'm in total agreement.
Do you reckon 2 up front would work? Because Paul Lambert has always had this thing where he won't play 2 up front. He'll maybe try it, he'll maybe play a 4-3-3 or something like that, but he'll never actually go with a 4-4-2 2 up front. Do you reckon 2 up front would actually work? Maybe Norwood and Parrott playing off each other? Or do you reckon we should stick to the current formation that we're playing with at the moment, but just tinker the side, as you said?
Well, I went with 4-3-3 because that's the formation Paul Lambert wants to stick with, so I have to go with that. I wouldn't have no problem playing 4-4-2. I don't think we've got the wide players to play 4-4-2. Be honest. I think Jack might be able to manage playing a right midfield. Probably Edwards probably could do a left midfield.
Jackson maybe?
No. I don't think Jackson could play a striker role, but if you've got Parrott and Norwood playing the striker, well, where does Jackson fit? He doesn't. Exactly. He couldn't play wide. He's not a wide player. He's got the pace, but he's no end product. We've seen him run up and down the wing, but he doesn't do anything. He hardly does anything with it. So all you're doing is running up and down. It just doesn't. That's not his game. I wouldn't mind him up front with Norwood like last year. He was getting some good goals with Norwood in that position in a 4-4-2. But then again, we changed that, and due to injury, I think that changed. But the top and bottom is there's a lot of things that could be done, but the manager doesn't seem keen on doing it.
Anyway, to end out the show, I just want to ask you both your predictions tomorrow afternoon. What do you reckon the score will be, Malcolm?
Oh, God. My heart says 1-1. My head says 2-0 Shrewsbury.
Stephen?
I'll stick with what I said the other day. And this is just an optimistic 1-1.
An optimistic 1-1. And I'm going to go for a 1-1 as well. Anyway, thank you both for coming onto this show. I really appreciated it. And I've really enjoyed having you both on. Just a bit of housekeeping to do before we go off the air. Next week, the podcast will be on Mondays and Fridays. We won't be doing 4 a week anymore. We'll only be doing 2 a week. That's because I'm so busy at university. You can find us on iTunes. You can find us on Spotify as well, Amazon Music, all of your popular streaming platforms. And again, I just want to thank the 2 of you for coming on. And I want to thank you all for tuning in. Thank you very much. And good night.
Cheers, Ben. Cheers, Malcolm.
Cheers, Steve. Thanks a lot.